Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast, your weekly dose of knife news and information about knives and knife collecting. Here's your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco.
Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast. I'm Bob DeMarco. On this edition of the show, I'm speaking with Yoni Wunderman of Compliance Edge Knives. Compliance Edge has been one of my favorite follows on Instagram for at least 5 years due to the super pretty, super tactical EDC fixed blades that Yoni designs and builds in his one-man shop in California. The knife that really got its hooks into me was the DCK Mark I, a beautiful bayonet ground everyday fighter that can be had double edge, probably my favorite type of knife. Oddly, I do not own a Compliance Edge knife yet, as I've always been slow on the draw for his monthly drops or poorly financially positioned if on time. What started as a whimsical attempt at knife making during recovery from a martial arts injury is now a full-fledged knife business. We'll find out how Yoni got here and what makes him tick. But first, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and download the show to your favorite podcast app. Also, if you want to help support the show, you can do so by sharing it or going to Patreon and seeing what we have to offer you there. You can scan the QR code on your screen or go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon. And just a little note, if you sign up for a year at once, you save 12%. Again, go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon.
The Shockwave Tactical Torch is your ultimate self-defense companion, featuring a powerful LED bulb that lasts 100,000 hours, a super sharp crenulated bezel, and a built-in stun gun delivering 4.5 million volts. Don't settle for ordinary. Choose the Shockwave Tactical Torch. TheKnifeJunkie.com/Shockwave.
Yoni, welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, so as I mentioned up front in my intro, I think I started carrying fixed blade knives probably about 5 years ago. I've always been a fixed blade collector, but kind of a daily carrier of folders. And then I started to realize, wait a sec, I can do this. I can start carrying in my waistband. And your knives were some of the first that came onto my radar as knives greatly positioned for that. Before we get into how you got started and everything like that, tell me how you got into the fixed blade EDC game.
Well, I've always been super into knives growing up. I was always collecting knives, and it kind of just one day hit me like I could try making a knife myself, and just started kind of going for it. I had a buddy that was basically started doing a little bit before me and just asked if I wanted to come make a knife one day. And I was like, dude, I've been kind of thinking about doing this. And it all just kind of started happening that way. It was super random and just something that I'd always been interested in because I'd had, high school metal shop and always thought about it. But it was funny. I had a feeling or a thought that I said, I don't know what I'm going to do for a career because I was 21 years old. I said, but whatever I do when I retire, I want to make knives and have like a dog and like work out of my garage. That'd be like a cool thing to do. And then I just started doing that. And I said, why wait till retirement? And it all just kind of happened. So it was super random.
Man, that's a thought that I imagine a lot of the listeners, I know I certainly resonate with that. Yeah. When I'm retired, I'm going to but you went straight to retirement. I admire that.
Yeah. For better or for worse, I just said, let's just try it now. And it worked out. Got a dog pretty quickly after I started making the knives, and that the rest is history. So it's been a fun journey.
So you, I read an article from San Diego, some local article about you as a businessman, and you mentioned in it that you were kind of recovering and recovering from a surgery of some sort or an injury, and started making knives at your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu studio. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was my friend that did it was one of my instructors, Matt Darcy. And I was recovering from eye surgery. I had like a PRK eye surgery. So I couldn't train for a year. And that was kind of when all this was happening, when I was like, oh, this would be kind of fun to do. And then we just started making them in the kind of back room of the jiu-jitsu studio. And yeah, at that time I was super into knives and gear like that, because we were doing a lot of combatives training. And so me and a couple of the other guys, we were just playing around with different knife shapes, and it was just all part of the kind of experience in doing the training, and it just all tied into each other. And some of the instructors, they had like contracts with military and stuff, so I got to meet some really cool people that had a lot of like hands-on experience, and learned a lot about knife design from talking to people in that community, in that kind of martial arts military overlapping community. So it was a fun experience. But yeah, that was like 12 years ago. It's crazy to think about.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like oftentimes, so I trained at a Jeet Kune Do place, and we
Okay.
did Filipino Kali, so knife, and then we also did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And whenever those worlds crossed over, it was mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. So like for us, what we were doing a lot of was, I wouldn't say it's anything like the Filipino style martial arts. It was a lot of just training guys how to get out of a bad position and then get to their weapon, really. It wasn't a lot of like knife fighting per se. It was mainly like, oh, you're on bottom and someone has a knife. We need to get you on top and get to your, whatever you can get, whether it's your own blade or your pistol or whatever the situation is. So it was a lot of drills like that. It was definitely different. I wouldn't really consider it like knife fighting or anything, but I've always been interested in that stuff. I've been dealing with crazy injuries for the last however many years. So I've been off the mat for a while now, but yeah, it was definitely it was definitely different. I'd say, than what most people think of when they think of, blade course or combatives and stuff like that, because it was a lot of dudes that had a lot of real hands-on experience that were some gnarly guys. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, the thought of a knife coming into any sort of grappling, that's terrifying and so very real, and that's probably how a lot of those engagements actually go down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say from experience or anything like that, but just from the people I've talked to, and yeah, a lot of it was like that.
So what did you learn about knife design, and what, kind of where you wanted to take your own design work in
Sure.
talking to these military guys?
So like one thing that really sticks out in my mind was I sent a blade out with the sharpening choils, and they took it on deployment, and the first thing they said was, you have to get rid of the sharpening choil. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, when we use it, it gets caught on like people's clothing and stuff and zippers, and it's a snag point. And so there was a lot of things like that, as well as they were telling me like, oh, the skull crushers. They're like, that's just cutting our forearms up when we're carrying them. And they want to be able to, if they want to be able to take the back end of the knife and push on it with their weight. So if you have a sharp thing sticking out on the back, you're just stabbing yourself in the hand. So those were like the two real things that stuck out to me, which is why on all my blade designs, you're not going to see, like on any of my defensive blades, you're not going to see a sharpening choil, and you're not going to see any kind of skull crusher, because I don't want that snag point, and I want to be able to put that top hand and like put your weight on it if you need to. So those are really the two main things that kind of come to mind when it comes to that direct feedback.
Yeah.
But those were some pretty big ones, because I think you see those features on a lot of tactical knives.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, I use sharpening choils. If we look, I have on this blade. I mean, I still use them on things. I try not to make them huge on every knife, but on the ones I do, sometimes they can be a little big. But so it's not to say that I don't ever use those features. It's just kind of cool to know and have that feedback, and be able to put that towards the design. And when people ask, why, oh, can we get this with this, or why doesn't it have that, you have an answer for them. So
yeah, I love hearing about two things. The sharpening choil thing to me is something I've heard somewhat recently. The past couple of years it's come up, and I thought everything had to have a sharpening choil just so you could have a perfect edge, and that's fine for an EDC knife, but I've heard that feedback about it being a snag point. And taking a look through my collection, and I like to design knives, and looking at my designs, I always have these sharpening choils because the edge, but in hearing that, it started to change my thinking too. Bring out the EDC knife that you just had out, the second one, the one that does have a choil. I noticed the way you designed it. It's still kind of the best possible option for not snag.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a snag point. I mean, I have one I can show you actually real quick, the Copperhead, which like this one has a massive choil on it.
It's beautiful.
And it for me, I don't know. It's one of those things where sometimes you go form versus function. And this was one that I felt just needed to have this big choil on it for the looks. But yeah, this one, the Vendetta, it's definitely this style of choil is a lot less likely to snag because the edge hangs out farther than the choil itself. So
yeah, and it's somewhat shallow too. There's not too much space for anything to get snagged in there.
Yeah, completely. So, and I mean, this one's less of a defensive style blade. This is more of just a little everyday carry, small, just EDC blade. So it's only like 6.5 inches, I think. It's pretty small.
So that one's called the Vendetta.
Yeah, that's the Vendetta. So that's kind of like my flagship model that I've been making since I started making knives. So 12 years now.
Hold it up one more time so we can take a look at it.
Yeah. So this one has the polished finished with the Ultim scales, but I pretty much make every knife in like 100 different colors. So it's kind of whatever I'm feeling that week, but this finish is pretty popular. Actually, I could show you one that I didn't grab from the thing, but I think you'll like it. I'll take half a second.
Sure. And as he goes to get that, I'll just say the Skull Crusher thing is.
So here's the same one, and this one is the SEAL Team 7 20th anniversary blade. So I did a run of these blades for the SEAL teams because I'm in San Diego over here. So it has their Team 7 logo on it. It's pretty sweet.
God, that is beautiful.
Same knife, just all blacked out. And yeah, I think we did like 20 of these or so for all the guys that wanted them a few years ago. So this was a really fun project. It's one of the few blades that I kept from like, something like that. So, but
what an honor to have that in the hands of those guys.
Yeah, it's cool.
Something I was saying as you got up to get that was the other thing you mentioned, feedback was no skull crusher, no pointy pommels. And that's something that that also comes with, I don't know, I hate to put it this way, but either maturity or any sort of practical sort of training with training blades. And I used to design, knives with all sorts of pointy back ends.
Yeah,
you can kill on this side too.
Me too. Yeah. I think it's kind of funny. Like if you look at a Winkler, you'll see like everything is just so like smooth, and there's none of that choils or skull crushers or anything. And those are known as like the knives.
Yes.
So I kind of, back when I was first starting, that the Winklers were like, that's what all those guys had, and that's what everyone was trying to own. And those, like, they still are, the coolest. But that was definitely, one of those things too, where I was like, okay, maybe there is something to it, because this one huge company, all their blades are super simple. So, and that was, something I like to do with my knives, is just try to keep them as simple as possible. But yeah.
So before you held up the DCK Mark I, and that's the knife I was talking about in the intro that I just absolutely love. Tell me about this design and how it came about.
Yeah, so this design was actually directly from my old instructor, Dave Camarillo. So he had a contract with the military, and that's who was helping me get in contact with all these guys. And he basically, we were just at lunch one day, and he drew out like a first draft of this, and I made it, and then we sent it out, got feedback. That's when I found out about sharpening choils. And I've been making it ever since. So it really, the whole theory behind it was directly from him, more or less. And I just kind of made it to the specifications that he wanted, and he took it out to the guys he was training, and we get feedback. And then over the years, because I think I've been making this blade for close to 8 years now, it's changed a lot. So I've kind of refined the shapes as much as possible. And so just recently, I refined the tip shape and made them like a 1/4 of an inch shorter and made the tip a little bit less pointy. If I show you, I have the ring version of it too. So here's one of the ones before the blade shape was changed. So it's just a little bit pointier. So we kind of, it's hard, might be hard to see on camera, but basically just made it a little bit shorter and a little bit more conical. And that made the tip a lot stronger. So then I was able to push the grinds in a little more, get the edge a little thicker, make it a little slicier. So I've been tweaking these things for years and just slowly like perfecting them, or trying to. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite knives. It's one of the most popular ones.
So you said there was a theory, or that Mr. Camarillo, I think you said his name was?
Camarillo, yeah.
You said that he was the one who kind of came up with the theory behind it. What would you say it is? How would you define that?
The theory behind
that
blade?
That design.
So originally he was like, he called it an assaulter's blade, and he was like 4-inch blade, 4-inch handle, and it needs to have a hook on the end so that it can deploy fast. And it needs to be double edge, but spear point. So completely symmetrical double edge. And so this is kind of what he wanted, gave me a little sketch, and that's what I delivered. I think this one is now not 4 inches, but it's just under. And I think it's a little bit better like this. But yeah, that was what his theory was behind it, was he wanted, and as he called it, an assaulter's blade for dudes to deploy with. So,
and then the ring came about at some point. What was the need, or like, how did you identify the need for that?
So the ring came about just because it's one of those things where more options is better. And it was just a simple thing for me to do, to put a ring on it. And it's probably at some point it's more popular than the non-ring version. They kind of go in and out with popularity. Week by week it's different. But really, I just was like, okay, I'm going to put the ring on it because ring knives are super popular, and let's see what happens. And people loved it. And I actually did a run of 75 of these for an entire buds class with their bone frog on them, all FDE blade handles. So, I mean, and I had no complaints. They loved it. They liked the ring. I will say that they did all single edge. They didn't want any double edge, and they said that they didn't want to, they were worried about cutting themselves with the double edge when I did it. So that was one thing that I found interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I figured it was almost going to be more popular for the civilian market, just because I feel like rings are a little bit more popular in like the gear market. But it sold well for both, and I've had a lot of people love this blade and haven't really had any complaints. So
I used to be
very good shape. Yeah.
I used to be very resistant to rings on non-karambits, and then I've actually grown to really like them, especially I like to carry a knife. I like to carry them kind of horizontally on the front, and it really makes it easy to grab and just to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to put your hand in the ring too. That's what I always tell people, like, you can just grab it like this and pull it out fast. You don't have to be entangled with it. It's kind of just there as an extra little bonus, really. So yeah, it's funny. I mean, I prefer the non-ring myself, but anytime I make a knife now, I usually make a ring version as well.
Okay.
So people just like it. More options is always a good thing. So.
And you really illustrate that with what you were saying before, your all the finishes you put on your blades. You make a lot of knives throughout the year, and each drop seems to have a lot of different not only sheath options but handle options and finishes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I pretty much every knife I do, I think I have 9 designs right now, but um, I basically make just a ton of different finishes and colors. So whether that's blade finishes, polished or stone washed, or different kinds of Cerakote or camo, and then handle colors, handle materials. So I work with a bunch of different G10 colors as well as carbon fiber, um, Ultim, just a bunch of. I try to keep it a little different and unique and make color patterns that not everyone's doing. So like I have the Tropic Thunder one, which has a Hawaiian Kydex sheath with, tan handles and a stonewash blade. And I what I found is that basically big companies can't make 100 different versions of their knife. Well, I'm sure they could, but for me, it's really easy to just, I'm making small batches of 4 to 5 parts at a time on a piece of G10 or a piece of Kydex. So it's really no different for me to throw in one piece of carbon fiber Kydex, one piece of tropical, one piece of black, and then make 4 of each, a Tropic Thunder blade, a blackout one, and a carbon fiber, and have 12 of the same model, but in, 3 different options. It's not any more work for me to do that. And it just gives people more options to choose from. And I found that works really well for me because, everyone has their own different taste. And it just, yeah, it's definitely helps the drop sell. I'll say that much, just because there's such a big variety. Yeah, it's funny. I just don't see that many other companies doing it, but
Yeah.
it's an extremely easy way to like sell a lot of knives is just change the colors.
Yeah, it makes them very collectible. And us knife junkie types, you'll see people who collect one model of knife, every single
Right.
version they can get their hands on. Spider
Yeah.
is great at that. Case Knives is great at that. Just reiterating in different exciting ways. And if you really get hooked on one design, man, that's a great thing you're offering your customers.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely people who will message me and be like, "Oh man, this is my 5th Vendetta or my 6th Dagger or something like that." And yeah, they might just really like that one knife design and they might want to buy that knife in 10 different colors.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it keeps it fun for me. If I only made a black one and a stonewashed one, that would be very boring for me. So it's nice to get the wide variety, but it does make updating the website and product photography very difficult. So
Oh yeah, I bet.
I'll say that much. Every time you make a new color combination, it's a new photo shoot and a new product web page. So
Oh man, yeah,
it's crazy.
that's we're going to talk about the business aspect in a while, but I would imagine that really takes a lot of bandwidth to keep up with that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's a lot more work than probably people think just because I'm doing everything by myself. So that part can definitely drag. It would be nice to not have to do it, which I've tried outsourcing before and the results aren't the same.
Well, tell me about the outsourcing of drops. I read about early on, when you first started the company and you were, that was, the company in earnest. You did some OEM type drops and it didn't work out. Tell us about that.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm
It's,
remembering what you're referring to.
I mean, didn't you work with some large companies to kind of get some of your knives made early on?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I did have some outsourcing some production. Yes. And what I found was that by outsourcing production, something goes wrong every time, no matter how big the company is and how good they are.
Hmm.
It's just there's so much that goes into making a knife, and so every time I did the knife I did was the Vendetta, this one that we've showed, and yeah, I did a production version, and just every time something would go wrong, the chamfers would be a counterbore instead of a chamfer. or the swedges were ground completely like wavy one time.
Mm.
And it was like, I'd wait 3 months to get these blades, and then I'd do a pre-order once I got noticed that they were shipped. And then all of a sudden I'd get them and they weren't usable, and I'd have to send them back and wait another 3 months. So it was just like, it was really hard to scale a business that way. And I kind of just determined like, hey, I'm going to have to do this myself. If I want to make these and produce more blades, I'm going to have to figure out this whole like CNC thing on my own, because just relying on other people to do it is not the, like, it's never going to be the best way to do it.
So learning CNC and CAD and CAM and all that, that seems like an incredibly daunting proposition. What was that like?
Yeah, so it was, for me, it was probably worse than for anyone else, because so what I did was I actually hired someone that knew that stuff. That was someone in the knife community. I'm not going to mention them. And I paid them like $6,000 a month to come into my shop and do all that for me. And I bought like a Haas mill, just, you know, we took out a loan for it. And so he was doing the CAD and the CAM and running the mill for me for about a month. And then we had a huge falling out. And then he left, and I had a giant machine and a machine payment and no idea how to use it. So nothing lights a fire, you know, quite like that. So I was like, all right, we got to figure this out. So I took online classes, in-person classes, talked to people, and it took me, you know, years to really figure it out. And now I have it down to a science. So when I want to make a new knife model, it's like boom, 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 super easy. My whole thing's just tight now. But yeah, it was a miserable process learning from scratch. So yeah, it was a lot, but it was worth it. Best decision I ever made.
So were you designing on pen and paper? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I had done a little bit of CAD stuff, but if I showed you a CAD drawing from my water jet days, back when I would water jet a blank and hand grind it, I mean, it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. So once I started working in Fusion 360, I got way better at it and figured out how to make the designs nice and clean and constrain them. So
are you as creative in Fusion 360 as you are when you're just kind of drawing?
I'm probably more so now. So the last several knives that I've designed have been all through Fusion without any like hand drawing as a base. And I actually prefer that now more than drawing by hand and then tracing it over in Fusion. So it's just after years of doing it, it's become easier for me. But most of I really don't make that many new designs. A lot of the stuff is just tweaking old stuff, because it's still selling well, and there's no point to, you know, for me, making a new model, even though it's easy, it's still over a month of work, because I got to make all the fixtures, get, you know, everything prototyped. Then I got to send the prototypes out to heat treat, you know, test them, make sure everything's good, the blade geometry is good. So it's a huge process to do it. So I try to only do like 1 or 2 new knives a year. But when I do design completely new stuff, it's lately just been all in Fusion and not starting with any hand drawing. So
you
nice.
send your stuff out for heat treat.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yes.
does that limit the materials you use, or how does that work?
Doesn't really limit the materials I use, because right now I'm working exclusively with MagnaCut. Yeah, I just have, I don't know, I like to use, I mean, all my knives are pretty much very similar, right? They're small EDC style knives. So there's not really any huge difference between them. Like I don't have a big chopper or anything like that. So for that, MagnaCut just does extremely well. And it's also one of those things where it's like, you know, when I was using 3V, every other email was, can I get this in MagnaCut? So you kind of got to give the people what they want. Yeah. And it's like, I get it. It's an awesome steel and it's stainless. And so I just switched everything to that, and heat treating that. I mean, it's been really easy because you just send it all out and they do it all in a vacuum furnace. It comes back completely perfect, the same condition that it left in. And I'll send them like 120 or so blades at a time. And they can do that way faster than I could heat treat that in like an even heat oven or something. So,
oh yeah, big batches, like lots of
it makes way more sense if you're doing CNC machining to do that, because you just can send them a ton of blades all at once. Just because with heat treating steels like that, on your own, you're going to have to use the foil packets, which is super sketchy and time consuming. And I think heat treat's one of those things that the bigger companies can do a really good job of it. And I know that when I was heat treating myself, you kind of lose about the same amount as they would lose. You're going to lose it from warping or decarb, and they're going to lose it from probably just, warping or maybe damage the blade or something like that. So you're not really getting any better results necessarily. Like, you're still going to lose 3 out of 100 of every blades you send to them or do yourself, is kind of what I found. So
3 out of 100, huh?
Pretty much. Those get turned into trainers.
Oh, that's cool.
Easy workaround. Yeah.
That's
what I do. Yep.
So you've gotten really good at CAD and CAM and CNC milling, so much so that you're starting off on a new venture. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm officially launching on July 9th. It's the world's first CNC knife making course. I've looked for a bunch of other ones. I couldn't find one. I found one CAD course, but that, the designing isn't really worth anything without the manufacturing side. So, I've been spending the last 4 months working on the first 2 classes. So the first class, I teach you my exact design process in Fusion and how to design a blade with manufacturing in mind, because, one of the problems is if you go on YouTube and type knife design Fusion 360, you'll find a bunch of stuff, but it's mainly made by guys who haven't actually manufactured knives. And they're doing a bunch of things where if you try to like machine the bevel in the way that they're showing you to design the bevel, it's not going to work. So you kind of have to design with manufacturing in mind. And there's a lot of stuff I've learned over the last 7 years doing this. And I just teach you how to design with all that knowledge already at your fingertips. And it's a nice, just step-by-step video guide that, it's all hosted on my website. And it shows you exactly how to design ready for manufacturing. And then the second class is handle manufacturing. So it's based around using a CNC router, which is really, you can get a CNC router for $500-600 on Amazon now, a cheap one, which will, not going to make as nice of parts as a $5,000 router, but you'll get something which you can then use to make more knives, scale up and grow, which is what I did. So I'm walking you through how to take your handles that you design and then how to apply a template to them. So I give you my tool paths from a project as a template, and you then, download that and apply that to your own handles. And I show you exactly what to click, where to click, which button, which numbers to change, and make it work. And that way you can kind of get results and make money within like a couple of hours. And then later in the course, I do like several hours of like deep dive. Hey, here's why we do this, and really break it down so that people understand it. I have a machine purchasing and financing guide in there. So I talk about which machines to buy. I talk about like 5 or 6 different ways to finance them and give my personal experience with financing machinery and how I purchase my machines. Yeah. So there's the course. I tell you, like, basically I give you advice. Hey, here's which machines you should buy. Here's some tricks to how you should buy them. Because when I bought my machines, I paid $0. Basically, I got them all by taking out loans and stuff like that, and did it in a way that it made sense. Like my repayments were a lot less than what I was making off the machine. So I just wanted to guide people through this same thing that I did, because, I saw that there was a gap in the market. There was no one offering this service. There's a lot of CAD CAM courses, but I've taken those courses, and you're going to learn stuff that you're going to waste your time, because most of that stuff is for machinists making aluminum parts for automotive or medical or aerospace. And it doesn't really apply to knife making. So I just said, I'm going to do a course. I knew I was getting shoulder surgery. I knew I was going to have to take 4 months off. So I just said, let's do it. And so this was been what I've been working on for the last month straight, just all day. Cause I had my shoulder fixed a month ago. So, and yeah, it's releasing pretty soon. And then once those first 2 classes are out, the design and the handle class, then I'm going to jump on the sheath manufacturing, which I think is going to be massive because these little fold over slim profile Kydex sheaths, I mean, these take me like 4 or 5 minutes to make. My system is just insane. And, the fit on these, there's no wobble. They're perfect click. Like there's literally nothing. They're locked in and they don't scratch. I have my tricks as to how to do all that. And it's going to, so the class 3 will basically walk you through how to design the molds. It'll give you my exact numbers that I used. You'll get a template. Say like, if your knife handle is this thick, here's the offset you need in order to have the, it's going to be total, like it's a total turnkey system basically with hands-on video training and in-computer video training. And then once that one's out, I'll go on to the blades because, the process it's the same process I went through, which was you get a small router. You can use that to make handles and sheaths while you're still water jet cutting and hand grinding blades. Mm-hmm. And then I know when I did that, the first year I did that, I doubled my income right away just by using that little CNC router and doing handles and sheaths. So then I was able to get the money to do, feel confident enough and pay for that mill. So I'm kind of just walking people through the same steps as I went, but it's a lot simpler because when I was doing the handles and sheaths, I didn't actually know CAD. I was paying that designer to just design stuff for me and send me the files that I could run. And I was paying him something like $500 to design a knife, another 1,000 for the sheath mold, another 500 for the handle file. And like my course is going to be less than all that to just learn to do it yourself. So
that's so cool.
So yeah, it's like my biggest passion that I'm excited about right now, obviously, because I can't make knives until September again. Wow. With my shoulder. Cause I had they call it a bicep tenodesis, where they remove your bicep tendon from my labrum and then reattach it to like my humerus bone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm that was the whole like, all right, I know this is coming and what am I going to do for several months? People have asked me, oh, it'd be awesome if you could make a course, if you could do a training. So I just jumped in and did it. So yeah, it's all, by the time this is out, it's pretty much going to be ready and released, but it's all up there on the website. There's trailers now and some sample preview videos of like the actual course to see how it looks. So it's pretty cool.
So people will go to your website and that's where you can find all the details about how to get involved and all that.
Totally. Yeah. It's right there on my website. You just go to courses and you'll see the whole sales page and you can check out the videos and, you sign up right there and you'll get if you decide to do it, you get a login and it's all the videos are nice and organized in one place and you can have your downloads of the files that I send you and it's just a streamlined process. So it takes the guessing out of it.
Man, I think you're going to be very successful with this. I got to say,
thank you.
Well, and I also wish you the best success with it. But
thank you.
It's very generous to be just handing over your process and removing all of the obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because knife making is one of those things where people are either really willing to share information or not willing to share at all. And I've always been willing to share information, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, this information, if you use it right, you can go from making 20, 30, 40,000 a year to like 400,000 a year. If you, actually get the machines and go through and build your brand up, there's no reason, that you can't be turning this into an insane business. So I just figured, let's put it out there. And yeah, it's not cheap by any means. But people always say, don't train your competition. And I just say, don't train your competition for free. So it's
yeah, right. Exactly. And they're in a way, yes, they're your competition, but at the same time, no one's going to make a Yoni Wunderman knife.
Correct. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I think that there's a huge, here's how I personally really feel about it, is that most of these guys are using Chinese production or something anyways, or even American production. And maybe they had a bad experience like I did with an American company or whatever. They're just going to be able to make their blades themselves. And I'm giving you the exact blueprint and everything I use to do it yourself. So it's not, you know, some people it's going to make them have more output, but for a lot of people, it's just going to make them less reliant on overseas production, which is a great thing. Like, we want to bring more manufacturing here. So, and, you know, I want to be able to, I don't always feel like I'm helping people when I make knives necessarily, especially weapons, but it is nice to feel that, you know, potentially help people and help some guy go from his garage who might be struggling to all of a sudden a couple years later, maybe he's 4, 5, 6x'd his income and he's going to be totally stoked and his life is completely different. And now the world has more awesome knives and, you know, I helped someone scale their business. So I think it's going to be only a positive experience. I'm hoping. I think people are going to be super excited about it. And I also think people are going to be very surprised when they see like how much work I put into it and the quality of the lessons and everything. So I really, you know, I made it as nice as I make my knives. So.
Okay. Ooh, nice. Which seem, like I said, I don't have one of your knives yet, but they just from looking at them,
we'll make sure you get one. Yeah.
Well, yes, we will. But they look so clean and they look so refined, and even your website is beautiful and refined.
Thank you. Yeah.
It seems like your whole business, your whole process, and the fact that you're still, or not, I shouldn't even say still, but that you are a one-man business is really impressive, especially with your output. Have you always been business minded, or did you learn this as you went?
I've always been entrepreneurial in a sense. Like, I've never had a real job.
Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's felt pretty natural. I just kind of surround myself with good people that have a lot of experience. And yeah, it's weird. I guess I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I've always thought of myself more as a craftsman, but now I'm definitely starting to feel more entrepreneurial and business minded. I think part of that probably is being in California and growing up in the Bay Area.
Sorry, I just had
no. I was like, oh, we got to fly or something. I think, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area of California, which is, you know, like all the Google, Facebook, all this stuff. So you're just around a lot of that kind of mentality, and yeah. So I think it just kind of rubs off on you. But I don't know if, yeah, I haven't. When I was younger, I never had any kind of business mind, and I think it didn't really happen until semi recently, just because, you know. I mean, I'm not technically the best businessman. I've been, you know, I should be hiring people and putting them behind my machines and making way more knives that way. But I'm too much of a perfectionist and craftsman to want to let go of the control. So every time I've tried to do that, like a couple weeks later, I'm like, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
Because I have too much.
That also seems to like make your knives more valuable in a way, because each one of them's gone through your hands.
True. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it makes it so there's, you know, I probably make, it's hard to say, but I make a good amount of knives for a one-man shop. But yeah, I mean, each one passes through my hands, which I think that's why you get stuff like the really nice edges and the really nice sheath finish, because each sheath, you know, I still bend each little tab and I still adjust the retention and get everything just right so that it's just enough pull when it pops out. And I mean, sharpening is a huge thing. Like, if you look at my edges, they're all very straight and even on both sides. And I think that's just the first thing I notice if I look at blades that are sharpened by employees versus owners.
Yeah.
You can usually tell, and nothing wrong with it. It's not that it's not sharp. It's just that usually when these smaller companies use employees to sharpen, you can kind of see it. Not so much with the really big, like the Microtechs and stuff, because those guys are like all really good craftsmen. So you'll see those straight edges on something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of the things is like, I think guys, if I look at the reviews that I get on my website, I can tell that people trust me because they've bought from me before and they know that it's going through my hands. So there's no like, is this going to be nice? Is this not? And they'll even write that in reviews like, oh, you know, I've bought from companies before and sometimes you get a good one, sometimes you get a bad one. And they're like, not here. You get the same thing every time. I mean, dude, the amount of times I've taken a knife from here in my house and then said, nope, went back to the shop and like resharpened it or touched it up or took out a little scratch or something and brought it. I mean, I probably spent more time taking out a scratch in a knife than making the knife itself, just because I was like, if someone opens this box and they see that scratch and they paid $400, if I was them, I'd be pissed.
Yep.
So like my what I let out and like my surface finishes, I'm so OCD with it right now, which I didn't used to be. My first draft CNC stuff was like super rough. But what I found was that if I charge more money and make the best blade I can, it's better for everyone than charge less money and make a lower fit and finish blade. I couldn't agree with you
more. And I think most collectors or most people who rely on them. I'm a collector. I don't rely on them. But I think they're in the same boat in that way. They would rather spend the extra $50 to have something that's perfect than cut a break and not. And just speaking of the sharpening, I know what you mean. Like especially on a double-edged knife, which I have a lot of double-edged knives. They're just kind of my favorite. The DCK with the bayonet grind. I love that. I mean, that's like one of my favorite, probably my favorite type of knife. But what I always do, and also with daggers, is look at the very tip where those 4 edge bevels come together. And
you got to look at it straight down this way. You got to like take a look this way and see how it all lines up.
Yep.
Yeah. No, when I machine these bevels, when I get it all set up originally with the fixture, because in the CAD, like in computer, I did everything perfect, and then what happens is it doesn't come out perfect. And I think with a lot of production blades, no one's checking it. Whereas with me, like I'm actually checking it and going like, well, yeah, the computer said it was going to put that line perfectly in the center, but it didn't. It's a little off to the right or to the left, which means we have to push this face in a little more or move this face out a little bit. And so, I'm micro controlling each bevel to like 0.0005 inches, making tiny incremental changes so that I can get that line as perfectly symmetrical as I can. And sometimes it's out of your hand. Sometimes it's like, weird vibration or something. Just weird stuff happens. Like sometimes the machine makes a part that like, where'd this come from? But for the most part, just taking in like, a day or two to balance in those bevels and like really get everything even on both sides. It's worth for me taking a full day, 1 to 2 full work days, just doing that and making micro adjustments, because once it's set, we're going to run this thing thousands of times. So it's let's get it perfect. Let's spend the time and do it right, which is like, that's why I don't take pre-orders. Cause it's like, dude, I don't want to be on a deadline. I'm going to take my sweet ass time, make this as nice as I can. And then you guys can buy it when it's ready. And I think that that's the best way to do it. But in my opinion,
that brings me to your drop system. How does that work?
So the drop system is basically, it used to be every Friday, and now it's kind of more like monthly, or it has been. And I just make as many knives as I can and then release them all at once, because it's makes more sense than I only have to do product photography and videography and make my emails for my email list one time. And just put it, out there as one giant batch, shipping, you do shipping all at once. So it makes the most sense in terms of getting them physically out. Like it's the way that I can manufacture the most knives. If I were to not do drops, I would make less knives. So a lot of people think that it's like you're trying to create some kind of scarcity, which is really just a byproduct of the system, because the drop system is the most efficient way to make as many knives as you can as a small shop, because you're just not doing every task every day. You're not shipping every day. You're not doing photography. You're not updating your website.
Yeah.
You're just going to just make knives. And then boom, one day in my photo studio, I'll shoot everything, spend an evening drafting emails, get a nice pretty email out there, do a drop, sell the knives. And then I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. the next day and ship them all. And by the time people wake up, they've got a notification in their email that their knife was shipped. When like most of the other small shops are like, hey, pay us now and wait 6 months, wait 3 months, wait whatever. So, I mean, you just see the biggest companies doing it, like not the biggest, but the companies that are growing the fastest, like Montana Knife Company. And it's like, it works for a reason. And it's a good system. So if you're not able to make more knives than people demand, it's the best way to do it, I think. Because that way I can stay focused in my shop and not worry about the stuff selling, not worry about pre-orders. You know, people that do pre-orders, that's insane to me. I mean, I tried it, but you're just matching up. Oh, which scales go with this blade? And this guy has an engraving and this, it's like, you're going to make half as many knives than if you just go, I'm going to put on music and I'm going to make as many knives as I can and not worry about anything. And, you know, you don't have to worry about emails, because when I was doing pre-orders, you get, every time your phone goes off, you're like, is this someone asking where their knife is? I'm late, you know, shit, what's going on? So it's like, I can turn my email off on my phone. I know that I don't owe anyone a blade or anything. I can just relax and, you know, make as many knives as I can, take that extra time, make sure there's no scratches, no blemishes, whatever, and then release them when they're ready.
And for a buyer, that also seems like a great way to go about it, or a great situation to be in, because if you follow Compliance Edge on Instagram and you kind of, and I think you have a newsletter where you let people know, well, you just mentioned that, if you kind of just stay in touch that way, you'll kind of get used to the rhythm and you can prepare yourself.
Yeah. No. And I'm probably the only person that does it, but I have a thing on my website on a drop week, I have like a cut the line thing. So you can pay like $50 and I'll ship your knife out like any day leading up to that drop. So if I'm advertising the drop 3 weeks in advance, that thing goes up. You don't even have to wait for the drop. You just pay a little bit more and you can get it. And I found that like, it works really well, because I mean, they're expensive. So most people don't want to pay more, but going from 400 to 450 isn't like a huge gap. And it's like, now you don't have to miss out. You don't have to wait for 6 months trying to get the drop. It's just like right there.
Yeah.
So I only put 10 passes up for every drop. I'll only have 10 spots that do that. And I don't sell out all 10 even. So I think it's kind of the perfect system, because it gives everyone the chance to do it.
Yeah, and it's great if you're fiending and you're like, I gotta have this thing and I don't want anyone to beat me. And it's also great if you are law enforcement or military and you're about to be deployed, or you know. Well,
usually if someone hits me up and says they're going to be deployed, I'll hook them up. That's cool. Yeah, I'll do the best I can. I can't, no promises, but I always, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I got one of those ready. I'll just sell it to you. Boom, here you go.
That's cool. So show us the knives. We're coming up to time here, but show us some of the knives that you have out that we haven't seen yet.
Okay, let's take a look at the SVM. This is one of my SVMs. This one's also polished with carbon fiber handles, and it has the matching carbon fiber Kydex sheath. And yeah, this one is probably one of my favorite knives. So it also kind of has the hooked, kind of curved. There's a ring version of it as well, but I haven't kept one yet. But this one's super tight, and people really like it because you can see like that sheath profile. It's just so minimal.
Yeah.
I have pretty much no wasted space on these sheaths. And the way they're designed is to fit with 5 different belt clips. So like I figured out I could put a slot where the sheath is right here. And that makes, all of a sudden, that makes your possibilities for mounting almost endless. Because when you have just holes, it's not going to always be spaced out right. But if you add one slot in the middle, all of a sudden now you can mount almost any clip on the knife because things don't have to line up perfectly with it. So
just a side note, and don't put that knife away. Just a side note. I got a knife. I won't mention what it is. I absolutely love it at Blade Show, but the damn holes on the sheath have me frustrated. I have got a million clips around this room.
Yeah.
And I've been trying, and I think I need to drill more holes.
Yeah,
it's been driving me nuts. So that slot is
yeah. So I do that on every one of my sheaths now. It's just standard. It's So the first 3 holes are like based off of a tech lock alignment, and then you get the slot, and then the next 2 holes are based off of a discrete carry clip. But with that slot, you can pretty much mount anything because it doesn't have to line up perfectly. So the slot's been really cool. I don't know why more people don't use it, but
Yeah.
what I will say is that most people, even though I have instructions, like a video in the box, I still get people that are like, the clip doesn't fit, and they're not utilizing the slot. So there is that. It definitely adds a little bit of emails. But I think once people realize that they can use it, they're like, oh, this works great. Because it's a simple little hack for trying to line up holes with everything.
Yeah.
This one's the Henchman. So this is probably my most popular model. Very similar to the SVM in overall shape and size, but it is straight. And then this is the only one in my lineup that doesn't have a swedge in it. So you're going to get like a little bit more robust tip without that swedge. This one's pretty cool. It was designed by my buddy who's a SWAT officer. He's like ex-special forces dude and wanted like a little blade for his vest. And I made him a handmade one years ago. And then 2021, when I started doing CNC, I was like, this is going to be my first blade I designed myself with CNC. And I was like, hey, can you take a picture of your knife that I made you? I'm going to start mass producing them. And he's like, sure, but mine's still the best. I'm like, yeah, of course. And then he still, one of his SWAT buddies bought one the other day, and he was like, mine's still the best, right? And I'm like, you should see the new ones. They're pretty slick. So, but yeah, it's a cool blade. So it was like, he's about my size. It was kind of molded off of his hand. And what I found is that a lot of people will be like, I was hesitant at first when I bought it because of the finger grooves.
Yeah.
And then almost like 95% are like, dude, this thing fits like a glove. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy how well it fits. So the reviews for this knife, I get so many compliments on the fit, very little returns because of it, but obviously, here and there. But yeah, so it's just a cool, simple knife, like very simple, nothing crazy about it, and just feels great in hand and really popular. When I first came out with it, they were a lot less expensive than they are now. So that was probably partially why they were so popular in the beginning. But then just being able to put so many out into the market and get them into people's hands, it definitely helped like build, interest around the blade. So for a while, it was a bit of a lost leader, unfortunately. But
it seems like the most least weapony, let me put it that way. Obviously,
yeah, a little bit. I think it just depends, right? Because there are a lot of weapony. Like, this is kind of similar in overall look. Do you know the rat knife?
Yeah,
it's kind of similar in a look. Like, it's a similar blade shape. It also has finger grooves. They're not anywhere near the same size as each other or build, but it's similar in a way where, like, yeah, I guess it does they both kind of could be like a paring knife, but then they're also, the guys that I did also for a buds class, we did some of these as well. So
I guess what I mean is it's the least incriminating looking,
Sure. Yeah. It's maybe the least scary, but definitely in terms of like function, I've had people from all walks of life use this blade and love it. So I think it's a cool one. It's one of my favorites. It's grown on me over the years.
The Henchman. Good name.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the only names that it has like a legit name. Unfortunately, I learned the hard way when I was first making folders. I called the folder the Infidel, and Benchmade has a registered trademark on that. And I was like 20 years old. I didn't know what a trademark was. I was working out of a 1-car garage, and all of a sudden I got like a lawyer hitting me up in the mail, like, cease and desist, Benchmade knives. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna go to jail. I'm gonna lose the $5 I've made off selling these. But they were actually really cool about it. In the end, the president or vice president reached out to me and was like, hey man, our lawyer kind of does stuff on his own. And he just sends those out because a bunch of companies knock us off, but we see that you're like a small garage maker. We're really sorry. If you ever want a tour, come by. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. So in the end, it worked out, but it was a lesson in naming things where so that's why now most of the knife names are acronyms. So like the DCK defensive carry knife. Like it's not, anything crazy. So the henchman was the only one. I looked up if there was a trademark, and there wasn't. And I just said, okay, I'll go with it. And I don't know, trademarking is so weird with knife names because it's like no one's gonna buy my knife by accident because it's the same name. But
right.
whatever. But yeah, so I just try to I try not to use cool names, but that one got a cool name. So
show us before I let you go. Show us the large Tonto again.
Oh yeah.
So
this one's the Copperhead.
Copperhead.
So that's just a snake. So I think that's pretty safe in terms of naming.
Sweet.
Yeah, this one is really cool. Yeah, all these I designed back in like 2000, between 2013 and 2015. Really, I've just been making new iterations of them over the past, getting all my old handmade designs and slowly getting them into CNC. It's just a long process when you're trying to make everything really nice and perfect, but I think it pays off. Like this knife itself, I mean, this part of the handle, like compared to where the blade is, I maybe did like 10 different iterations that were all like 10,000ths of an inch different, and was like, just looked at like 10 different knives that were, no one could have told them apart pretty much. But I'm sitting there with like putting numbers on the back side and then putting them down and mixing them around and being like, this one's my favorite, mixing it back up. This one's my favorite. Okay. Yeah. That's the same knife. All right. That's the one. We're going with that one. And like, so my design process is just really insane like that. So that's why they end up looking cool like this one. So we have really nice, like the line from the exact front line of the handle is perfectly centered from the tip to the rear of it. So a lot of time into the design process with these to make them look nice. Because I feel like making a knife function is actually pretty easy, but making a knife look nice is actually pretty difficult. So
yeah, just to have you look at it and your mind knows that it's that everything is balanced and everything looks great.
Right. So there's actually like a theory kind of behind that, and I teach it in the course. I'm like, I show you how to achieve that, and it's pretty simple, but I won't spoil it. But
yeah,
it's part of the design process. When I do it, there's like a couple simple rules that I follow, and you end up with something that looks super clean every time. So,
well, Yoni, thank you so much for
Yeah.
showing this stuff, and tell everyone how they can A, buy your knives,
Sure.
B, check out this first ever CNC knife making course.
Sure. Yeah. So all my knives are sold through my website. Like we talked about, I do drops. And if you go on my website, just on the front page at the very top, there's just a countdown timer that's always there. And it'll say, hey, here's the next drop. Here's a date, countdown timer, and a button that just says notify me. You can click on that, put your email in. And once I make more stuff, I usually promote for a week out. So you'll start getting those emails knowing that there's a drop coming. You don't want to wait for the drop. You can pay the early access fee. So it's actually pretty simple. So it's all through the website. But again, I just had shoulder surgery, so you won't really be seeing anything from me until about September, most likely September, October. Because I'm just still healing up. And then the course, it's also on my website. You'll see it's pretty much front and center right now, just because that's the only thing I'm really trying to promote at the moment with my shoulder. But if you just go in the drop downs, you'll see, courses, blade drops, it's all right there. And it's all going to be neatly organized, and it'll walk you through the whole purchasing process for the course. So it's all right. Everything's right there on the site.
Great. Well, I got some more questions to ask you, but people will have to become patrons to hear that.
Okay.
On Patreon. Yoni, thank you so much for joining me on the Knife Junkie podcast. It's been a real pleasure. I love your work.
Thank you.
I think it's beautiful, and I can't wait to get my hands on one.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure that you get one. So I'll have to. I think I have 2 DCKs in my personal collection. I can. We'll have to figure it out. Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Yoni.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.
Adventure delivered. Your monthly subscription for hand-picked outdoor, survival, EDC, and other cool gear from our expert team of outdoor professionals. TheKnifeJunkie.com/battlebox.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Yoni Wunderman of Compliance Edge Knives. Also, just be sure to check out on July 9th as I record this. This is a week from today as this is being recorded. It'll be in several days, if you're listening to this when it drops, the world's first CNC knife making course. Soup to nuts, and you will see Yoni's entire process and with all the obstacles along the way shaved out for you. So definitely go check that out. For Jim working his magic behind the switcher, I'm Bob DeMarco saying until next time, don't take dull for an answer.
Thanks for listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review at reviewthepodcast.com. For show notes for today's episode, additional resources, and to listen to past episodes, visit our website, TheKnifeJunkie.com. You can also watch our latest videos on YouTube at TheKnifeJunkie.com/YouTube.